Okay, we just finished doing a back-to-back 90, and the pipe is here to show. Another thing you might want to learn how to do with a back-to-back 90 or any pipes that you do, even a 90 degree, is something we call a kick. A kick is something you do to existing pipe to relocate the angle, so you want to put it into a box, or you want to bypass an obstacle to go into a panel. So let's say we have this, we have two boxes, and this will actually be part of one of your labs that will require you to put a kick in a pipe where you do a back-to-back 90. You have a box, 4x4 box, and a 4x4 box. It'll be a certain distance apart, and you're going to do this back-to-back 90. The problem is that your boxes are never flush with the floor or the wall. Their holes that are in them are a little off. So sometimes you need to do a kick to go into a box or go into a panel. And the reason that is because the boxes that you run your conduits in, where all the wires will go, the bottom of the box is not flush with the holes that takes the connector. So this pipe is going to go inside this connector like this. All right, and we'll zoom in and show you that. As you can see, it goes into the box. But the box, if you notice, the hole is not flush with the back of the box. So if this is fastened to the wall, it won't go into that connector very well. You have to do some kind of movement to this pipe so that it goes in correctly. So this is where a kick comes into play. So if this box is placed here and I had to put this pipe there, you'll notice it won't go in. All right? So we need to make some modification to this pipe so that it can go inside the box. All right, so we're talking about kicks and how we put a kick into an existing pipe so that we can put it into a box or we can put it into a panel. Now, in this case, the kick is only going to be 1/2 inch. So to demonstrate an actual kick, I'm going to kick it so that it actually is about 2 inches. So then we're going into a panel or a different obstacle that's farther out than just 1/2 inch. So a kick can be used to go into a box, or a kick can be used to bypass an obstacle and then continue on. And what you do with a kick is you take your 90-degree bend pipe, you put it into your hickey. Now this time, you're actually going to keep your bender in the upright position. So when you're doing your 90s, you put the shoe on the floor. But when you're doing kicks and offset, you actually put your bender in the stand-up position. So I'm going to back this out so you can actually see the correct location of the bender as I'm bending it out. Okay, so we're ready to go. We're going to put our pipe in our bender and we're going to create a kick. Now you want to put where you want to create the bend, you want to put your shoe past the 90. You don't want to put it at the 90. You want to put it on the straight piece of pipe. And in this case, we want to bring the 90 out. So let's say it's flush against the wall. We want to bring it so that it will be coming out a little bit. So I have to put my pipe and bend it the way I want the pipe to come out. So if I want the pipe to come out, I got to put the bend so the pipe comes out. All right. So in this case, I have to flip it this way to have the pipe come out. So you see this way, I'm going to bend it so the pipe comes out from the board. So I line this up so that the pipe and the kick are perpendicular. And I'm just going to give it maybe 10, 15 degrees so that you can gain the kick I want. So I'm just going to bend it a little bit. I put my foot on the bottom of it there to keep it from slipping, and I put pressure down and I make my kick. All right, so I've done that already. As you can see, there's a bit of a kick. I take it off and you'll see a little better that I've created a kick. All right, so if I were to put this on the wall now, you'll see that this pipe has a kick. So I can put my hand in there and then it stops. So it's come out. And if I had an obstacle, I could bypass the obstacle, right? So right now it's designed that I almost bypassed that box. So if I wanted to bypass that box completely, I can add a little more kick to it. So I can put it back in there some more. If I can get the same spot that I was before, so you can get in the habit of maybe putting a mark where you get your kick. So add a little more kick to it. Put it back up there, and now we basically almost bypassed our box. All right, so this kick can be 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 10 inches, it doesn't make a difference. It's known as a kick. And you can do kicks on both sides, one side. So if I want to do a kick on the other side, and I want the pipe to come out, Now, I need to put it in the bender and face the 90 the opposite way. The first time I had the 90 going this way, now I got to place it the opposite way. I want to make sure I'm perpendicular, and I line it up, and once again, make that bend. And as you can see, now I have a pipe that has 2 kicks in it, and if I put it against the wall, it has space here and space here, and you created 2 kicks. That's how you put a kick in a 1/2 inch or any EMT pipe using your EMT bender. Another way you can do a kick for EMT pipe is to actually bend it on the floor. The advantage of this is you can use a tape measure, put it down by your pipe, and as you're bending it, you'll see the amount of kick that you need, and you can stop when you reach that kick. The way you do that is you just put your, once again, you put your pipe in your bender, like so, tighten up on it, make sure that the distance you have here is the same that you have there, or else you're going to get what they call a dog leg. So if you have your fingers underneath here between the pipe, make sure you have it there. If it bends down, you're going to end up getting a bad kick. So make sure it's even. And once you tighten up the pressure, the pipe should not move. Put your heel on there. Now let's say we want a 2-inch or a 3-inch kick. You can put your tape measure there, and you bend it until you get to the bottom of the kick that you want. So I'm going to just do a little bit of a kick. And as you can see, the pipe is rising here, and I can keep going to any amount of kick that I want. So if I want a 3-inch kick, I'll go a little further, and roughly there, I'll have a 3-inch kick. So you can do 1 inch, 3 inch, 6 inches. It's very easy to do this way. Another way of doing it, besides having the bender on the floor. Okay, so we've learned how to do a kick in a back-to-back 90 or a regular 90. What's important to know about a kick, and also with offsets, is when you do a kick, you actually have what we call shrinkage. So when we do a 90, we gain pipe. We gain 2.5 according to the EMT pipe, a bender. But when you do a kick, anything less than 90 degrees, you actually lose pipe. So remember that from here to here, it used to be 30 inches. So I've marked 30 inches on the wall, on the board here. And if you notice now, if I go back to back, you'll notice that that pipe is actually shrunk. It's no longer 30 inches because we've taken away with the kick the length that it was from back to back. So when you do a kick, you have what we call shrinkage. All right? So when we have a kick, we end up shrinking the pipe. So we're going to get some shrink happening when we have a kick. We're also going to get shrink when we do another common bend called the offset. And the offset is used when you have a piece of pipe running and all of a sudden there's an obstacle in the way. So let's say you're running a pipe and all of a sudden it comes in front of an obstacle. So let's say we put a piece of column here, a steel column or wood or whatever the case may be, and your pipe has to go around that obstacle. This is when you have to do what we call a offset and go around the obstacle. When we do an offset, we're also going to have shrinkage. Now based on our bender, it has a tablet on here to help you determine what markings you have to make so that you can have an offset depending on how much you need. We're going to talk about multipliers and shrinkage as far as a common number, so no matter what size of offset you need, you can use these multipliers and shrinkage to come up with whatever bends you need. All right, so let's talk about the mathematics of offset bends. So we know we have shrinkage. We also have to use a multiplier. So your multiplier, when you're dealing with the pipe, if you're dealing with a 45-degree bend, your multiplier is 1.4. Now keep in mind, these numbers are coming from trigonometry because you're dealing with angles, so therefore they're all trig numbers. So 45 degrees, the multiplier is 1.4. 30 degrees, the multiplier is 2. And 22.5 degrees, the multiplier is roughly 2.5. It's more like 2.6, but we're going to use 2.5 as a round number. And 22.5 is a very common angle when we're using saddles. So that's why these are the most three common ones we're going to talk about. So along with the multiplier, you also have shrinkage. Okay? And for a 45-degree angle, your shrinkage for the pipe will be 3/8 of an inch. For 30 degrees, our shrinkage would be 1/4 inch. And for 22.5 degrees, our shrinkage is going to be 3/16 of an inch. Now, when we're talking shrinkage, we're talking, this is a multiplier. In other words, if my offset is 3 inches, it's 3 times 1/4 for 3/4 of an inch shrink. So that's how you use the multiplier. So the shrinkage is for every inch of rise, okay? And the multiplier is used to determine how far apart the markings on your parts, your pipe will be based on the rise of your pipe. So an example would be, let's draw a piece of pipe. And once again, I'm going to use what you're going to use in the shop, which is basically a 60-inch piece of pipe, or 5 feet. And we're going to say that from the end of this pipe, there's an obstacle somewhere over here that we need to go over. So let's say the obstacle is 15 inches away from the edge of the pipe. So 15 inches, we're going to have an obstacle that we need to go around. So therefore, the pipe is actually got to do this and to overcome this obstacle that is 15 inches from the edge of the pipe. So I know my first bend is going to be here. We're going to call that A, is where the first bend will be. But we need to do a second bend, and we need to figure out where on the pipe we need to mark that. You determine your B mark by using the multiplier. We're not going to worry about the shrinkage right now. Let's just figure out the multiplier. So since we have an offset, we need to determine what kind of offset we need. So let's pick a obstacle that is 4 inches in height. So it's actually 4 inches high, and it's 15 inches long. What we care about for the multiplier is the 4 inches. So we have a 4-inch obstacle, and we say we need to multiply. Well, what the multiplier does is tell us how far the two markings on our pipe will be to do the bend. So since we have a 4-inch offset, and we're going to decide that we're going to use a 30-inch degree bend for this bend to demonstrate. So it's 30 degrees, multiplier is 2, so therefore 2 times 4 is 8 inches. So mark A and mark B will be 8 inches apart. So let's say we mark this B. We know between A and B, there will be 8 inches. So now that we know that mark A and B are 8 inches apart, so technically, if you were to measure from the edge of the pipe, mark B would be 15 plus 8 inches away from the edge of the pipe. So this distance would really be 23 inches from the edge of the pipe to mark B, and from the edge of the pipe to mark A would be 15. It's always good to measure from one point, which would be the edge of the pipe, when making your marks. But you could do between A and B if you really wanted to. So now we know the two markings based on our multiplier, which is 2 for 30 degrees. What comes into play now is shrinkage. Depending on your bend, and if you have any other bends in it, shrinkage could be very important. Our example is we had our piece of pipe, and we knew that this pipe from the back of the pipe to the front is 52 inches and 1/4, according to our previous bend for the previous video. So we have that much pipe left over, but we need to reach this end here where we're going to go into a box, and it has to be 15 inches from A to the box. And then we have this pipe that's turning outer in. So technically this pipe is either like this, or it could be like that. It doesn't make a difference, but it's set the distance. So what becomes important here is that the A and B and where this pipe goes is very important, because there's going to be shrinkage when we do the offset. Matter of fact, because it's 4 inches and we're using the 30-degree bend, we need to use the 1/4 inch shrinkage. A 1/4 inch represents a 1/4 inch for every inch of rise. So technically, for our 4-inch offset, it's going to shrink this pipe 4 times 1/4. So we're going to do 4 times 1/4 equals a total shrinkage of 1 inch. So this pipe that is now 52 1/4 is actually going to become 51 1/4 after we put the offset into it. So we need to determine where exactly A and B go on these pipes. Now, if you're not sure, you have to work it from this side, and B has to be calculated where it goes, and then A. If the pipe is longer than 15 inches, we can always cut it shorter and make it work. If this was a straight piece of pipe, it wouldn't make a difference. We put A at 15, B at 23, we make our bend, and then we can continue with our straight piece of pipe, or we can cut this end. So depending what you have, but in this case where we have a 90, we have to work backwards, and we have to measure from here and calculate where B and A will go. Okay, since we have a pipe that's got a 90 on it, we almost have to work in reverse on figuring out our A and our B. Here's what I mean. We know that we have a 15-inch obstacle, and we know that our pipe with the bend in it is 52 1/4. So technically, between the back of the 90 and the edge of this obstacle, so this distance here, we have 37 1/4 inches. That's the distance we have from the back of the 90 to the obstacle. So to prove my point that sometimes you have to work backwards and there is shrinkage, we're going to estimate or change or say that the distance from the back of the 90 to the obstacle is actually 30 and recalculate it. So we rub that out and we say that from the back of the 90 to the obstacle is 30 inches. So we have 30 inches from the edge or the back of the 90 to our obstacle. We are going to determine where our A and B mark is going to be marked on the pipe. But we've got to keep in mind that there's going to be 1 inch of shrinkage because of the 4-inch rise that we calculated. So that shrinkage is going to happen between here and here. So what we need to do is actually calculate this not as 30, but calculate it as 31 to add that 1 inch of shrinkage. So in actual fact, if I get my pipe, I want to measure from the edge of the pipe, the back of the pipe, I want to measure 31 inches. And that is where my A mark will be. So my A mark will be at 31 inches from the back of the pipe. And my B mark, which is closer to the back of the pipe, will be at 23 inches. So those are the 2 marks where we're going to put the offset. When we do that, we're actually going to end up with a piece of pipe that's much longer than 15, but we'll be able to cut that. But we will be perfectly set up between the 90 and the obstacle, which we cannot change. These are objects that are set in place. So that's what we're going to do and see how it works out. The other way you could do it, you could do the mathematics by calculating it from that end and coming up with different numbers for measuring from the outside end. This is one way of doing it. You can also figure it out the other way. So now that we have all our possible measurements, we're going to have to decide which way we're going to do it. I'm going to try using from the end of the pipe. So we're going to mark 21 1/4 and 29 1/4 on our pipe from the open end. So I'm going to take my pipe and measure 21 1/4, 1. So if we wanted to measure from the end of the pipe, our A and B marks will be a little different. Since the A mark is 31 inches from the back of the pipe, and we know our pipe is 52 1/4, we can actually take 31 off the 52 1/4 and get the new A mark measuring from the other end. So the new A mark would be 21 1/4, and the B mark would be 29 1/4. You'll notice that both these marks have 8 inches apart, just as we determined by our multiplier. So the markings in red, 31 and 23, would be measuring from the back of the pipe, going 23 for B, and 31 and 23. And if it was for measuring from the front of the pipe, you would be measuring 21 and 29 1/4. and measure 29 1/4. So I have my 2 marks, and as I said in the previous videos, you should always put your marks right across the pipe. So mark right around it. So now I have 2 marks. So we're going to start off, we're going to do our pipe bends for our offsets. And remember that because we measured, we decided to make this obstacle only 30 inches from the 90, we're actually going to have more than 15 inches of pipe left over. So in that case, I'm going to remove this markings of 15 inches because based on our new numbers, our pipe will be longer than 15 inches if everything works out correctly, and we'll need to cut the pipe shorter to go into the box. So we grab our bender and we're going to make our 90 using our line goes on the arrow when you're doing the offsets. So remember, we put it on the arrow of the bender, line up the marks, and bend it to 30 degrees. Okay. Also remember, we talked about lining up our 90s depending which way it's going. We said that our 90 was perpendicular to the box, so when I bend it, my 90 needs to be perpendicular to my offset. So I'm either going to have it this way or I'm going to have it that way. So depending which way I want to bend it, I got to make sure that this 90 is perpendicular to my bend or that way, one of the two. It doesn't make a difference in this case. So we're going to set this up on our arrow and we're going to bend the 30 degrees. So I get ready, put my mark on there, and I'm going to bend this till I line up with the 30-degree mark with the bottom of the pipe. Here's a close-up of the bend we just did. As you can see, we had the mark on the arrow, and I bent the pipe so that the bottom of the pipe lines up with the 30-degree mark on my bender. So if you look right above it, you see that basically the bottom of the pipe is in line with that 30-degree mark. That's how you make a 30-degree bend, or a 22 or a 45. You bend the pipe until the bottom of the pipe is level in line with that line. So we made our first bend. We are now going to flip the pipe over and put the arrow on the next mark. So we'll go to our mark B. We line it up with our arrow again, and now we need to line up our pipe so we don't get a dog leg. We double check it, and then once again I'm going to bend 30 degrees to the bottom of the pipe. So there's our offset. We're going to find out whether or not we've done a good job at getting a 4-inch offset. And as you can see, this already looks a lot longer than 15 inches than what we need. What we need to find out is whether or not we got the 30 inches from the back of the 90 to where the obstacle is, which is right about here. Okay? In order to see whether we did a good job at our bends, I put this pipe on a table with a tape measure, and we're going to see whether or not we have all the numbers we're looking for. We're looking for 4-inch offset between that goes over the obstacle. We're looking to see that this end of the obstacle from here to the back of the pipe is actually 30 inches, and whether or not the whole pipe shrunk an inch from 52 down to 51 1/4. So we'll zoom in and we'll see whether or not we did a great job. Alright, I've lined up the measure tape with the back of the 90 so that we can have a reference point. So if we go along the pipe, the first thing we're going to check is whether or not we have our 30 inches that we talked about. And as you can see, where the offset finishes is actually at the 30-inch mark, which is what we were looking for. And if we follow the pipe along and see the end of it, you'll notice that we're roughly at 51 1/4, which means the pipe did shrink 1 inch with putting in a 4-inch offset. What we need to see now is whether or not we have a 4-inch offset. As you can see, our offset is 4 inches, so that worked out well. And to double check that you've bent both bends correctly, you should get in the habit of measuring at one end of the offset and going to the end of the pipe, and you should get the same results. This indicates that both bends that you did were both 30 degrees. If it's not correct on both ends, then obviously you're missing, need to add or subtract some more to one of the bends to get the correct 4-inch offset. You'll also notice that our pipe, we needed 15 inches, is much longer than 15 inches. So we will have to cut that end of the pipe so that it goes into the box. But that's not a problem because we can cut it anywhere we like. So we were successful in the calculations we did. To recap, we had a 52¼ inch piece of pipe. We wanted a 4-inch offset, and we had a 90 here, so we had to calculate backwards where our A and B calculations were. We did them 2 different ways. You can decide which way you prefer to do. But we also know when we did this bend that we would have a shrinkage of 1 inch. So that's important, determining which way you're doing your pipe. If this was a straight piece of pipe and there was no 90 on it, you wouldn't have to worry about shrinkage. But because we had a 90 coming from someplace and the pipe had to go to another location with an offset, the shrinkage came into play here. So you have to calculate your shrinkage. So shrinkage is important when you know you have a bend and other bends all in one piece of pipe. If you don't have 2 bends in a pipe, shrinkage is not as important. So to recalculate, your multiplier is very important for offsets. So depending what angle you pick, 22½, 30, 45, you use these multipliers to multiply how much offset you need, and the amount of offset determines how much shrinkage you have. So if you have 4 inches of offset, you will take 4 times 3/8 or 1/4 or 3/16. If your offset was 10 inches, you go 10 times these numbers. So that's how you get your shrinkage. So you have shrinkage and you have multipliers. These both apply to kicks and offset. Anytime you do any kind of bend that is less than 90 degrees, multipliers and shrinkage come into play. So that's our tutorial on offsets. Our next video will most likely cover saddle bends and 4-point saddles. But for today, we've completed an offset with a 90 on it and shrinkage.